beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horse is kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. You'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight.
Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight.
In the saddle till the job's done right.
Welcome to Burning Daylight, the only podcast for the working cowboy. Well, howdy there, folks. Welcome back. Hope your weekend was good. I had a little bit of some technical difficulties yesterday. I this weekend as well, getting my show dashboard up and running. Talked a big game. Turns out it wasn't quite up to snuff, but I think we got a lot of it fixed. Anyways, this is the Friggin Farm and Ranch Report for Tuesday, April 7th, 2026. And we got a board that's trading more headlines, and we got some weather maps and DC drama all at the same time. Yeah, so grab a cup of iced tea, maybe a little something stronger, and let's see what kind of wreck we got lined up for farm and ranch people on this day. Before we get into the show, this episode is brought to you by Lone Star Stockyards out of Wildorado, Texas. I think they finished up their sale today. Never mind. I had there we go. Hold on. Now we're cooking. We got something here. All right. Looks like they ran 1,160 head, 68 head through today. About 80% of them being feeder cattle, 937 head. A handful of slaughter cattle and 206 head of replacements, almost 18%. Compared to last week, feeder, steers, and heifers traded mostly 10 to 20 higher, with the exception of the 900-pound cattle, which were steady. Steer and heifer calves were sharply higher on a light test. Trading activity was on very good buyer demand. Quality was mixed, with the majority of trade coming from plainer cattle off a short wheat. Any open cows that had the potential to return to the country was bought to rebreed. And as a result, slaughter cows and bulls were too lightly tested for a market trend. As you can see, only 25 head for slaughter. Hot, dry, and windy conditions have continued across the trading region. However, some much needed rain is in the forecast over the weekends. Supply included 80% feeder cattle, 45% steers, 54% heifers, no bulls, 2% slaughter cattle, most of those being cows, 52%, 48% bulls, 18% replacement cattle, 44% stock cows, 41% bred cows, 2% bred heifers, 12% cow-calf pairs, and then a handful of bulls, it looks like. Feeder cattle supply over 600 pounds was 78%. Anyways, that is Lone Star Stockyards, their sale for today. They got their spring catalog sale coming up on the 11th, so that's this Saturday. I've got their catalog here, and there was a little schedule of events. So where was I looking? You can watch and bid on cci.live and schedule events. So Friday at 5 p.m. This is all Central Time. They're at the Lone Star Stockyards. So Friday, April 10th at 5 p.m. was a preview of all the horses that want to be demonstrated on live cattle. On Saturday, the 11th, from 9 to 10, they have the soft preview, which is preview of general riding and opportunity for potential buyers to visit about the horse. There will be no cattle preview on the morning of the sale, and the sale itself starts at 11 a.m. sharp. So go check that out, please. Please support our friend of the show and sponsor, Lone Star Stockyards. They're good people, send you good cattle. You can call Bill Martin at 970-302-5834 or Sheldon, who's the yard manager, at 806-736-0040. All right, let's get into the show. All right, let's start with the numbers. Can't complain about the wreck if you don't actually look at it. Make sure you go check me out on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and Substack. That's burningdaylight.substack.com. And you can go check out the dashboard that I'm working on. Like I said, it's getting pretty close to being ready to release and start promoting. So, all right. On the live cattle side, futures are still trying to hang on to the high ground. The Packer is more than happy to help the cash leak lower anytime they get a headline to hide behind. Tight beef is the story, but leverage is a coin flip from week to week. Live cattle finished out at $247.30. That was up 28 cents. Feeders, historically high levels, but every penny of that is claimed to feed cost. It seems like Maycorn's creeping higher. It keeps a lid on how wild feeders can really run. It's not quite a get rich market, but it's really is a don't screw it up market. Hogs still kind of in the corner. Look like the kid who didn't get picked for dodgeball. Cheap pork is fighting for consumer dollars while beef tries to keep its premium. And on the grain side, corn can't decide if it wants to break out or just kind of flop around. Beans are trading South American weather and Chinese demand rumors on top of all of everything else that's going on, and wheat still got big interday swings off of every war and weather headline, it seems like. The equities are bouncing around on what they say soft landing fairy tales, while the war premium in crude refuses to die. Dollar strength keeps a thumb on the exports, and every little whisper about the Fed turns into a 300-point move. So let's see, go back. So corn ended up 453 3/4. So it was down a quarter, and beans were at 1164 3/4. That was down 2. Wheat's at 608.50, so it was up a quarter. And then on the energy side, diesels. This is an old number. It says 540. That was last week. It's now like 564 for national average of highway diesel. It's I'll have to look today, but it was pushing $6 a gallon here. It's pretty rough. DAP fertilizers at 682. All that stuff's up. The prime rate on your operating loans is 7.75. Feeder finance is 8.25, 8.25, 7 3/4. Let's see. All right, crude it stays right there with all the Iran nonsense going on. Crude oil still incredibly high. I'm gonna put my dashboard on the screen and see if I'll put that up there. All right, yeah, so here we go. This is the Burning Daylight report. National on-highway diesel averages 463 a gallon. West Texas crude's at 110. Brent crude's up $4 at $105 a barrel. Fertilizers 682, urea's at 549, both up. Potash has dropped a little bit, so it's at 398 a ton. Your prime rate for operating loans is 775. Feeder finance loans 825. On the stocks side, S&P was up about 45 points. Dow Jones was up 65. NASDAQ was up 200. And the Russell, I'm not sure what that one is, up 39.20. So stock market's looking fine. But, you know, the the price of everything else is also way up. All right, so let's get in the Sale Barn Pulse. Is pretty, I mean, really good on lightweight, Kev. So this Fallon, Nevada, this was at Fallon Livestock. 301 a hundredweight on 520 pound steers. At Torrington, we had 545, 298 a hundredweight. Oklahoma City West there in El Reno at 625, 285.50 a hundredweight. That big Superior feeder auction is 12,500 head, 274.50 a hundredweight, and buyers are incredibly aggressive on the light calves. Okay, let's get into the war reel. Operation Epic Fury. Largest volume of U.S. strikes on Iran today. U.S. and coalition forces continue to hold heavy presence in and around the Middle East. Carrier strike groups in the region, air wings flying daily, and ground units forward deployed in all the usual powder keg locations. Iran and its proxies and assorted resistance brands are still probing. There's got drones and rockets and harassment attacks that would be considered acts of war if the roles were reversed. In Europe, the grind continues there in Ukraine. There's artillery duels, armor losses, and rotations that chew through men and equipment at a pace that the politicians don't want to put any real number on because it's not pretty. Precision strike campaigns continue across missile sites, air defense nodes, ammo depots, and command hubs. They'll brag on the ones that hit and then go real quiet about the ones that get through, like the missiles that have been hitting Israel and then all of our bases throughout the Gulf area. A lot of them being pretty much just blown all to hell. Let's see. Casualties are real and ugly. There's the most recent numbers I've seen is like 400, about 400 service members injured, so 400 casualties. About all but 40 of them have returned to service, but the ones that haven't have been pretty severely injured. So keep an eye on that. Keep all of those in your prayers, because these are all, like, a lot of them are small town farm and ranch kids. You know, there are a lot of times they're National Guard units that are deployed. So coalition losses, local forces, and civilians all stack up real numbers, and they don't ever kind of fit into a nice, neat talking point. On the intelligence community side of things, the OSINT world, Twitter accounts and others are a lot of times way ahead of what the official news that gets published, and sometimes weeks ahead. I know Daryl Cooper, the Martyr Maid, he's a pretty controversial figure because he gets claimed or accused of being a Holocaust denier a lot. I don't think that's true at all. But anyways, he was reporting about the damage on our bases over in the Middle East like a couple of weeks ahead of the major reporting from, you know, your kind of legacy outlets. So let's see. You do have to filter all this stuff for bias, because a lot of it's like Iranian state proxies that are putting it out. There's a lot of Russian bots. There's a lot of Chinese bots. There's a lot of our bots out there pushing our official propaganda. Telegram is where combat footage and raw claims are usually go first. Channels tied to Russian, Houthi, Iranian, Ukrainian, and Western aligned interests, all blasting their own version of events, and it's it's all propaganda, and it all can be useful if you treat them like witnesses with an agenda. So it's not all useless information. It all can be useful if you read it in the right light. Shipping and flight tracking OSINT shows real routes and shut down airspace and ships turning around or hugging the coastlines to dodge the missile zones. And that's where you can see the economic damage of this deal in real time. So everybody's selling a story here, whether they're independent OSINT guys or state-controlled TV or the Pentagon spokespeople or trusted legacy media. They all have a narrative to push, and the only thing that matters is what actually happened and who pays the bill for all of it, which is the U.S. taxpayer. All right, so escalation and risk. So every aircraft carrier group, every missile fired, every base hit adds another layer of risk premium to the oil and the shipping. Iran and its proxies still have the ability to make a real run at choke points like the Strait of Hormuz, or to keep the Red Sea and the nearby corridors hot enough that insurers jack the rates through the roof, and that in turn causes the ship owners just to reroute completely and go around the Horn of Africa. And then, God forbid, there ever be some sort of Islamic uprising in South Africa. Then you'd have a real mess. You'd have to like sail south to Antarctica, I guess. I don't know how that would work. Okay, so and then Russia and Ukraine's just a slog, just a modern day World War I. But grain, fertilizer, and fuel from that region still move under constant risk of interruption. Ukraine being the breadbasket of Europe for quite some time. And what it all means for your wallet. So on the energy side, war risk keeps a floor under the crude and the diesel. So like, don't expect it to drop under $100 a barrel anytime soon. So that's fuel for your pickup, your tractor, your irrigation pump, every semi that's on the road, and every ton of feed that's hauled to your customer or to your operation. It's all powered by diesel, which is $5.64 a gallon for highway diesel. So dyed diesel's not much better, but still expensive. Fertilizer plants and liquid natural gas export facilities near these hot routes where the war's going on feel every little bit of scare, every little scare that they have there. The cost bleeds, but that cost bleeds through to the urea and the anhydrous and the UAN. And any disruption in the Black Sea or the Red Sea shows up in wheat and corn spreads and in the basis numbers at your local elevator. And when ships detour around Africa instead of cutting through the Suez Canal, the freight costs skyrocket, and then that gets baked into your price. So big importers in North Africa, the Middle East, and Asia start paying more, which can be bullish for the U.S. exports, but doesn't always trickle down cleanly to the county elevator check. Okay. Freight and insurance wise, maritime insurance and freight go up every time somebody fires off a rocket or a missile. Even if nothing gets sunk or nobody gets killed or nothing gets blown up, every time something flies across that Persian Gulf, it takes a hit. So same volume might be flowing, but it's a higher cost, and it's a tax hidden in everything that you buy. Container and bulk rates impact the equipment and parts and any input that has to cross the ocean before it hits your farm or ranch, which is almost everything because we don't build anything here anymore. It's one of the things that I was hopeful for in the Trump, and still am. It seems like there has been some movement towards the reindustrialization here, but in the meantime, all that shit comes from China. or Vietnam or India or somewhere in Asia usually, and then even in like Eastern Europe and some of those countries. But that all has to cross an ocean to get here. So in the plain terms, like you can expect diesel to stay higher for longer than the chart logic would expect. When you catch a 10 to 20 cent drop on a quiet headline day, buy the dip. It's just a new dip. It's not meaning that we're going to keep dropping until that thing is figured out. And it sounds like we are bombing their oil export terminal there at Carg Island, I believe it's called. That's going to cause oil prices to go up even more. On the feed side, corn and byproduct feed stay pretty jumpy. Contracts and basis deals matter more now than ever. So if you're backgrounding or finishing cattle, the cost of gain math can flip on you in a real hurry. So redo the spreadsheet before you fill your pins back up. Cattle checks, tight supplies are supportive, but the packer leverage and plant risk can turn a strong futures market into a disappointing cash week. So don't fall in love with the target. You got to stay flexible and reward the market when it gives you gifts. So let's, where is my, so on the JBS front, on the labor strikes, they did go back to work. There was no labor deal in place, but they're supposed to start negotiations back up on the 9th and the 10th. But in the meantime, that Greeley plant will be, I believe yesterday was the first full day of kill in, like 3 weeks. They were able to maybe pump a couple hundred head through the plant with their manager level employees, like the non-union people, but it was the suits doing all the work. And so you went from, 5,000 to 6,000 head a day to a couple hundred. So, anyways, they're back at work, no deal in place, but that means they're going to need a lot more cattle. That Greeley plant alone carries about 5% of the U.S. capacity. So about a 35 to 40,000 head pile up in the Texas, Kansas, and Nebraska feedlots. And also there was a fire in Booker, Texas at apparently it was mostly like a coal cow plant. And but they ran about 700 head a day, mostly coal cows. But it affected the whole community. There was like 94 families, over 300 jobs that were affected. And 700 head a day is not much, but when it's one of the few, places slaughtering coal cows, it does put a dent in everything. So we'll see how quickly they can get that back online. We'll see how much this backlog of cattle pushes the cash market down. We'll see how that goes over the next week as that plant's at full capacity now or close to it. All right, so then there's another avian flu H5N1 outbreak. Over 1,000 dairy herd infections nationwide. So the USDA has a mandatory pre-movement testing for dairy viral RNA found in retail milk samples. EID tags requirements are tightening for interstate cattle. And then further on the New World screwworm in northern Mexico, the sterile fly facility is stood up in Edinburgh, Texas. So they're trying to combat that, but has been moving closer. So let's hope we keep a wrap on that with that sterile fly facility. On the bird flu stuff, the experience that I have with it was, I wouldn't say it was minimal. I mean, we had to deal with a lot of the precautions, but we didn't see a whole lot of actual cases where I was. But the home dairies that we were backgrounding for had issues with it, and I guess. Well, the cattle themselves, there wasn't a whole lot of mortalities, but the milk production just dropped off a cliff when they got that stuff. So it's something to keep an eye on, but it's also another chance for them to keep pushing this traceability stuff down your throat, which is, they're trying to make the RFID stuff mandatory. I don't know how keen the Trump administration is on following through with that, but it was a big deal during Trump's first term and the Biden administration. So that stuff is still floating around there, and so keep your head on a swivel about that. And I'm not saying that the tags themselves aren't necessarily a bad idea. Like you get a lot of use from them, but at what cost? That's all of it. And the fact that they're trying to make stuff mandatory is always alarming to me. That always sets off alarm bells. Okay. And then on the let me find my notes on this particular one. It was 45Z. It was a clean fuel, as you can see on my notes there, but goes towards low carbon fuel production. It did not. I had a pretty extensive set of notes on there. Okay, here we go. So Treasury and IRS proposed 45Z regulations in early 2026, and the USDA is still expected to deliver a farm level feedstock calculator later in 2026, which means tillage, nitrogen, and other farm practices can matter financially to downstream fuel markets. So if buyers start asking how you raise the crop instead of just how many bushels you hauled in, it's that 45Z thing working its way back into your operation. So essentially what it is there's tax credits for like biodigesters, like the methane digesters. And I had a better where was that? Okay, so it's a clean fuel production tax that pays a tax credit that pays fuel producers. So it's ethanol plants and renewable fuel or renewable diesel outfits and SAF producers. I'm not sure what SAF. It's a bigger check per gallon than their to lower their life cycle carbon intensity score. So it's all back to this carbon bullshit, which I thought we were supposed to be out of in the Trump administration, but apparently it's still in there. Okay, so Treasury and IRS dropped proposed regulations earlier this year. laying out new 45Z GREET model to calculate carbon intensity, and the USDA is building a farm-level carbon calculator to plug into it later this year. So if an ethanol or renewable diesel plant can prove that their feedstock, so that's your corn, your soy, your sorghum, they can prove that it's low carbon, they get a better tax credit. That means practices like no-till and cover crops and better nitrogen management make your grain worth more to certain buyers because their practices lower someone else's carbon score. And on the livestock side, that means that fuels derived from animal manure, like digester gas, turned into renewable natural gas or drop-in fuels can qualify for very low or even negative carbon intensity values. And that opens the door to manure to fuel partnerships where a packer or a dairy co-op or an outside developer who owns the digester and the credits, and you're selling waste as a feedstock instead of you're selling your manure as a feedstock to those digesters rather than paying to have somebody haul it. So the updated guidance favors U.S. grown feedstocks over foreign oils. They've dialed back some of the indirect land use charge penalties, which improves the carbon math for soy-based biofuels. And the USDA is building a field-to-fuel carbon model expected to plug into the Treasury's system later this year. When that happens, your fertilizer rates and your tillage passes and your manure handling and your yields become dollar signs on somebody else's tax credit calculations. The American Biogas Council says the EPA's renewable volume obligations were good for ethanol and biodiesel, but inadequate for biogas. Their executive director says that the volume should have been a lot higher, so the biogas and manure to fuel crowd is already pushing for more. And the 45Z is the mechanism that makes it all pencil out. So if your grain elevator or your packer starts asking about your practices, like your tillage and about your tillage, your cover crops, or your nitrogen management, that's 45Z. So pay attention to that. One last story on Colorado, on the domestic front out in Colorado. And this is a quiet move that a lot of people probably haven't heard about, and it's good-ish. So it's a property tax bill. It's SB 26010-010. Colorado passed SB 26010, which rewrites the definition of farm and ranch in the state property tax code and formally adds pasture-based operation as a defined term. So that means if you're running livestock on real pasture, the animals have regular access to open ground and get most of their diet from grazing, and it's a legitimate business for profit. You now have a clear path to the lower agricultural property tax classification. So this matters because under the old rules, the big conventional ranches and row crop operations usually qualified no problem, but the smaller pasture-based outfits. So this is like your farmstead type people, regenerative agriculture type, running like pasture-raised hogs or poultry on rotational pastures. They often got kicked out of the ag classification and taxed at a residential or a market value rate, even when they were actually producing ag products for market. So there is a catch. The law uses words like predominantly and for the primary purpose of obtaining a monetary profit. So that means county assessors still have pretty wide latitude. If the assessor wants to be strict, they can still call you a hobby. And along the Front Range, where this was Where am I at? Okay. Okay, so along the Front Range, where these little ranchettes they butt up against subdivisions, you can bet that there's going to be a bunch of pushback from the county officials who are voted in by people that live in the subdivisions. But all in all, this seems to be like a step in the right direction. It's a good move made by Denver, and they're kind of quiet about it. I don't think they really wanted to really broadcast this out there, but they did. Anyway, so kudos to them. But check on your local assessor to see whether they're gonna consider you a real farm or ranch. That's where you're gonna find the politics are still very, very real, and most of the time very stupid and gay. All right, on this day in history. So this was for yesterday. I didn't update it for today yet, I don't think. In 1917, the United States officially declared war on Germany, entering World War I. That was 109 years ago yesterday. Woodrow Wilson told Congress that the world must be made safe for democracy. 4 years later, 20 million people were dead. And now we've got a hot war in the Middle East for the third time in my lifetime. Pretty cool. Yeah, or something. Cool. April 6th, 1896 was the first modern Olympic Games in Athens, Greece. 241 athletes from 14 nations. No women competed. And all the dudes were naked. No professionals were allowed. Most events had fewer than 5 entrants, and it grew from there. And in April 6, 1974, Hank Aaron hits home run number 715, breaking Babe Ruth's all-time record. Hammerin' Hank Aaron, Henry Aaron, received death threats throughout the entire chase. He broke the record with 2 Secret Service members assigned to him. And all because a black man from Mobile, Alabama was better at hitting a baseball than anybody else ever was at the time. But he took it all in stride and just kept on plugging. Really, really a great baseball player and just a stand-up guy. On the sports front, Michigan captures their first NCAA college basketball championship since 1989. They defeated UConn 69-63. I watched the kind of the tail end of it. I bet I bet UConn to cover the spread at halftime. It was 8.5. Got that done. So good on them. Baseball's back in full swing. I am watching the D-backs beat the Mets 3-2 right now. The A's are coming up later with a series at the Yankees, followed by a series at the Mets. Easter Sunday was pretty cool. We were watching the A's play. They're finishing out the rubber match for their home opening series. They won it 12-10 on a 3-run walk-off homer by Brent Rooker in the bottom of the 10th. Pretty good way to close out their first little homestand and on to New York. So that's all I got for the Friggin' Farm and Ranch report for today. Hope y'all had like I said, a wonderful, wonderful weekend and have a good rest of the week. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode. Getting this all dialed in and it's starting to work like it should. So we're getting there. We'll be there. We'll be back tomorrow and we'll see what other bullshit the world has to throw at us. But in the meantime, move your ass. We're burning daylight.
Your eyes up in the morning beneath the stars so your cinches tight. Horses kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. We'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. Burning daylight. Well, life is just a gather, and you won't catch 'em all. But when you ride through the gate, make sure you sit up tall. I can see the horizon, it's looking pretty bright. Well, get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight.